Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Black Women Photographer Summit. I am so excited for this conversation with Erika Berry. This conversation is made possible by Adobe Lightroom. So, shout out to our friends at Adobe. Man, for those who do not know Erica's work, I was just talking to her before this, and I'm just like in awe. It is beautiful. It's like I'm looking at Discovery Channel. Like it is just gorgeous, gorgeous. Erika Berry is a wildlife photographer and outreach instructor with Utah's Hogle Zoo. She's traveled to 33 states, documented over 700 species of wildlife, and uses her photography to inspire, to connect with nature, and conservation. Erica, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Can't wait to
Oh,
talk about all the wildlife stuff. It's gonna be
all
great.
the wildlife, all the things, all the species, like over
Yes.
700. That is just incredible.
Yeah.
Um, what I love to ask people because we only see the current, we only see, your posts on Instagram, but
Yeah.
those 500 plus posts don't truly tell the story of your journey. So let's start at
Yeah.
the beginning. You grew up in Maine, surrounded by
Yes.
nature. What was your
Mhm.
relationship with the outdoors like as a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my mom is similar in this sense too. My dad always joked, she's like, "There's too many bugs, but I love the outside. It's great." But I was definitely that kid that spent a lot of time in the forest. Maine is the pine tree state, so there's a lot going on there. Um, but I did a lot of exploring and also, ironically, a lot of reading. And when I was about 12 years old, I went out to the old Borders bookstore, which is now Books a Million, and I saw this big encyclopedia from Smithsonian that just said animal on it. I said, wow, that's so cool. I want to get that for myself. And as I was looking through it, I went, wow, there are so many different types of animals out there. I had no idea, just being in this little bubble here, where wildlife could take me. And so I decided from then on that I was going to try to see every animal that I possibly could on the planet. And from then, I got a little point and shoot camera from my dad, and I was just taking little pictures of things every now and then, wasn't super invested yet. And then some random day in July, we were on a drive by the beach, and I saw what I thought was a fake owl on top of a chimney on someone's house. I said, Mom, wow, someone got a new fake snowy owl. That's so cool. And it turned and looked at us in the car, and I nearly lost my mind. I was like, why is there a snowy owl in Maine in July? That's so crazy. And from then on, it has just skyrocketed to a whole bunch of different things. I love all different types of subjects, but my main one, of course, is birds. That's my big jam. Um, at this point in my life, I am at around 420 species in the United States. So I jokingly call myself a little bird nerd, but I love it. And from then on, it's just been wildlife everywhere, my whole thing.
That is just incredible. Oh my
Yeah, thank
gosh.
you.
And so from that early spark to now traveling across the country, and
Yeah.
photographing our beautiful species and but also teaching the conservation about it.
Yeah.
What was that like? I know that seeing that owl at 14 was like a turning point, but
Right.
what was the other turning point or moment that you felt like, okay, this is like truly my path and I'm here, I'm doing this, especially
Yeah.
in an area where I feel like there's not a lot of us who do that work. You don't have that many people to turn to that look like you that are doing
Right.
what you're doing. So how did you keep going and realize and truly hone in on this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, ironically, I lived here in Utah before, um, from like 2016 to 2019, and I had been working in vet offices. And that was also kind of my other realm of learning about animals and wildlife and stuff like that. And I ended up moving back to Maine right before COVID times. And that was kind of my big trigger is that I really needed something to do. I worked at my aunt's nature preschool, so most of the kids were staying at home. And with all the lockdowns, I really couldn't go anywhere. And at the time, we actually lived um, on a dead end street that had a whole big marsh in front of it. So all of Scarborough Marsh in Maine was kind of my whole big backyard. And I would just spend hours every day hanging out in that marsh, driving down to the beach that was about 10 minutes away. And that really allowed me to engage in wildlife more, but it also pushed me to then try out social media, especially on Instagram, and take a chance on talking to people that maybe I would never see on a regular day. And quite a few of those people are good friends of mine now, just so fun. And one of them that inspired me especially, her name's Jenny Wong. She goes under J Dubs Captures, and she's actually Canadian. She's a chemist, but she got into wildlife a little later in life, and she's also trying to inspire others to want to get into wildlife and learn new things. And she has gotten to a point now where she actually gets to work with Polar Bears International. And I went, wow, that's so cool. The fact that you get to do all of these really fascinating things, I didn't know that was possible. That's something that I would love to look into myself. And she really helped inspire me on how to kind of get started and get into that realm.
What
And yeah,
Oh, sorry. No, I was gonna ask, what was that username again? I would love I
oh,
wanna
yeah, absolutely. So it's J Dub DUB. Let me see if it'll pop up. I know sometimes it can be a little finicky. Oh, there you go. It captures Jenny Nikon Ambassador down there.
Oh, oops,
Yes,
sorry.
she is a lovely human. I highly recommend following her. She's got a lot of great information and she's so, so kind, great conservationist. Um, but yeah, she really helped push me and
Mhm,
inspire me with a lot of the work that she does because it's a lot of storytelling, and that's something that I'd like to
mhm.
delve into as well. Because wildlife isn't just there for entertainment, you know, they're all here for a purpose. And so all of that really kind of pushed me to this point of where that's so awesome. I can do that myself, and I want to try that out too. So here
I
we are, months
absolutely
later. It's been great.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that, and, on that note, like, like you capture the emotion and personality in animals that I don't think people
Mhm.
really think about, right? Um,
Yeah.
and how do you approach photographing wildlife in a way that honors and respects them?
Yeah. So one thing that I learned as I was kind of getting started is a lot of people would say that the key to wildlife expression is really in the eyes, but I
Mm,
kind of wanted to stand out more than that and say, okay, how can I go beyond just the eyes? How can I add more expression and personality and movement? I really love trying to get birds in flight. So, as a joke that people say, I don't have the patience for birds in flight, which is fair. It's really hard. Sometimes you only get 10 seconds for it and you really just have to go for it.
that's what I was
And
about to
I
say,
think,
like, how many
yeah,
seconds? Oh my god, wow.
right. And even like this one, what's nice with ospreys is they slow down on approach, which I appreciate.
Mm,
Um, but you really kind of have to plan it out in that 10 seconds. It's almost like a little countdown in my head. I don't know how to explain it better than that, but every species is also so different, and that can really depend on your shutter speed too. So, for example, some of these bigger birds, you can go a little bit slower with your shutter speeds, and that's fine. And slower in those cases could be 1/1600th of a second, but
mm.
where you're looking at hummingbirds, that could be 1/4000th of a second. So it really just depends. And the more that you visit certain individuals, the more that you kind of practice with each species, it allows you to kind of practice that too. But that tends to be my jam. I like movement. I like where the animals are trying to talk, like that raven there was just calling out. I said, you know what? That's really cool. Even though a lot of people see a raven and they go, "Oh, it's just a black bird." Like, well, look at it in the snow. That's so cool. It's talking and it's not leaving. So really just taking advantage of any moment really that's happening. It doesn't necessarily have to be the coolest animal out there, but if you're willing to take the time to practice with certain individuals, it can get you a lot further with the ones that are maybe a little bit cooler.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's just truly remarkable, and you've now photographed more than 700 species.
Mhm.
Which encounter has been the most surprising or maybe emotional for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, it might be a little bit further in my feed, so I apologize, but
No, no,
back
please. I mean, don't
in
apologize. I can scroll all day on your feed. Like, this is just stunning.
yeah. So back in 2021, I had a friend reach out, say, "Hey, I managed to get these tickets onto a puffin cruise." Said, "Oh, I've never heard of puffin cruises before. I know Maine has puffins on the outer islands, but I didn't know anything
Mm,
about it." And they ended up getting me a ticket. These tickets usually sell out in 30 minutes every year, if not less. People are very interested in
wow.
Atlantic puffins. And at the time, I didn't really know what to expect. I got in my car, my little 2010 car, and drove 4 hours to the easternmost point of Maine. And I stayed in the Bluebird Motel. I said, "What in the world am I doing? I'm getting on this boat." Oh, there we go. Yeah. So the little puffin with that blue there, the blue sky that's flying. Yeah. So got on this boat, met some new people. Captain Andy was lovely. He does this all year. He actually passed away a couple years ago, but his family has run the business and everything and friends. And it's this island that's about 20-ish miles out to sea. It's shared land with Canada. And you can actually get off if the weather is nice enough into this little dinghy boat, and they row you out to the island, and you stand in what feels like a little closet that fits 4 people, and you can actually photograph puffins for 2 hours and these birds called murres and gannets and razorbills and all these crazy things. And it was the most unexpected thing I've ever done in my life. But I absolutely fell in love with these birds. And they added another element of challenge because you only have 2 hours to get whatever shots you think are going to be worthy of what you want,
Mhm,
essentially. And
mhm.
this was one of my favorites. It ended up, Down East Magazine, which is a famous magazine in Maine, ended up reposting it. But these little guys fly at 55 miles an hour, it turns out. And it's just such a small space, you're elbow to elbow, but it was the most magical thing I've ever done. Would highly recommend it if you ever have time. But it's
Oh,
also the most random thing ever. And people spend 7 years trying to get onto this island sometimes. It's crazy. But it's the most wild thing I have ever done as just a singular day experience.
7 years. Wow. Oh,
hmm
so how did you prepare before this trip then?
Great question. So, ironically, as you can probably see in that little story there, this
Yeah,
is when I went again in 2022, same thing.
okay.
Um, when I arrived, I had put a bunch of photos on my hard drive, said I want a clean SD
Mhm.
card, I'm going to be ready.
Yeah.
And I pulled in, we got out of the car, and I walked up to the boat, checked in, everything was fine. I went to get on the boat and went, "Oh my God, I don't have any SD cards. I left them all at home.
I
What am
would
I even going to do?" Nearly died inside. But luckily, I have really great friends who had come with me that second time and had some SD cards that I could borrow that I ended up mailing back to Massachusetts. Um, but that was terrifying. So please, 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 please remember your SD cards anywhere you go because it will be devastating.
I'm
um,
good for you because
yeah,
I literally would have, like, just jumped off the boat, like,
it's like I think I just to give up. I have to go home.
we
It's
would've just,
over.
like, literally, oh my god, wow.
Yeah, first
Oh,
time in years. It was crazy. Um, but yeah, it's one of those things where, like I said, these are birds that fly really, really fast. And that was something I learned after my first trip out there. So I really wanted to practice. And this is something that I recommend for anyone that's just starting out in wildlife. If you're willing to go out to your local parks, or if you live near some body of water that's got seagulls, that is your best tactic to practice with a lot of different birds if that's something you're interested in, because they're so used to people that they're less likely to leave fully. but you can also practice with expressions. You can practice with flight because sometimes they'll hit the wind just right. And they can also hit those higher speeds too. And that can really allow you to grow as a photographer, even though it sounds really silly to go sit by a duck pond. You can practice so many different things, including portraits too. So that's kind of what I practiced on with these guys because they're also water birds. So I kind of wanted
Oh,
to delve into that realm. So that's what I would recommend if you
no,
ever do want to try.
that is so smart, like, you really don't have to go that far, and you definitely don't have to
Yes.
wait 7 years to start.
Right. Don't wait 7 years.
I mean, wow, that is such a good tip because I can't even imagine, like, 55
Hmm.
miles per hour, and you are
Yeah.
literally confined to that one space that you
Yeah.
said,
It's really
with
small.
your elbow. And
Hmm.
then, what is in your toolkit? What gear do you use?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I recently got some new gear as of February. So I have a Canon R7 and then a 200 to 800 millimeter lens. When I took those photos, including that one right there, actually, I had a Nikon D5600, which I actually still have. Um, I do have a smaller lens that I can still use for wildlife. It's a one, I believe it's a 100 to 300. Yeah. And then I also have a Sigma lens 150 to 600 that was with my Nikon setup. So as of right now, I did treat myself a little bit and went a little bigger on the lens, which has been fun. It's a pretty solid weight though.
I mean, you deserve it.
Solid.
Oh my gosh. And so, take me also back to just whether it's, on that boat, on the cruise, but also just anytime you're out, in the field. Sometimes, you're waiting for hours. I mean, there you only had 2 hours, but most of the time
Mhm.
you're waiting for hours, maybe all day for that one perfect shot. How do you
Yeah.
balance the patience and the technical skill and the storytelling?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question. So, one example I'll give, one of my favorite spots to go to is called the Bear River Migratory Refuge. And it's way up in northern Utah. It's a 12-mile auto loop, so you can imagine how many acres that whole area is. And I love going out there for raptors, for example. So, raptors is essentially any kind of bird of prey. It could be owls, it could be hawks, falcons, stuff like that. And oftentimes they can be really, really shy. Got lucky with that guy on the screen. He was very kind to me. Um, but it can be a whole personality thing where one falcon is completely tolerant of you and another sees you coming 100 feet away and says, absolutely not. I see your car, not doing it. Goodbye. Nice to see you. And so it's one of those things where you really have to be open-minded to every opportunity that pops up in the areas that you're in. And sometimes it can be something as simple as maybe a little goldfinch is sitting on a sunflower and the colors match really well and the lighting's really nice. And you can make something really beautiful out of that. And I know a lot of people, like I said, tend to get really excited about the cool things. I'm very much the same way, but it can really break up that time of I have this goal in mind. There's this one hawk that I know is here. The season's right, the timing is right, the lighting's great. But if it happens to not show up, at least I got something, you know? And a lot of people, I know like patience is so, so hard, but a lot of people tend to leave situations having nothing. And I would rather get like a nice photo of a squirrel or a woodpecker and say, you know what? I did something cool and the lighting was great. And this is still worthy of what I love and what I can share. And maybe something happens the next time, but I got something. So I always say keep an open mind because you just never know what kind of photo you'll get out of it. And maybe it's something even more spectacular than what you were hoping for.
Such beautiful advice, and I mean, again, your work is just incredible. Has
Thank
there
you.
ever been, like, moments where you just stop and put the camera down and just witness the beautiful species?
I do. And ironically, oftentimes it'll even be a lighting thing where the weather's just kind of weird and I just kind of want to sit there and let the moment happen. Um, it's definitely happened out in Antelope Island. I've had some times where I just park my car, and sometimes it's just an animal is so close that no matter what gear I have, even if it's my little 18 to 55 millimeter lens, sometimes they're just so close to my car that there's nothing I can do, and I just have to enjoy it. But at the same time, remind myself of the fact that, wow, you're sitting in your car and there's a pronghorn, kind of look like little antelope, standing next to your trunk with its babies, and it feels comfortable in your presence. And that's amazing. Or on the other side of things, a lot of owls, especially in the not nesting season, are really active at nighttime. And sometimes it's just nice to say, I can see this bird. I know that it's here. It's talking, it's calling. There might be another one in the woods. And it's nice to just kind of sit there and let the sun go down and watch them. And it's happened a few times, even with the snowy owls as well. They get a little more active during blue hour right after the sun's gone down. And it's such a beautiful thing to just watch them fly in the dark. I could attempt something, but it's just nice to enjoy it. It's like, wow, how often in life do I get to be in a car with my mom on the beach? We had a little dinner on the shore and it's feels like -5 with the wind chill, and there's three snowy owls flying above our heads. Like that's immaculate. How does that even happen? I feel like I'm in Harry Potter. It's great. Um, but sometimes you do just have to put the camera down and enjoy it. Even if you've only gotten one or two pictures, it's nice to still not always look through the lens and just appreciate the memories that you have, especially if you're with someone, because that can make it really fun too.
Oh my goodness, that is so beautiful and such an important reminder.
Yeah.
And again, going to these photos, I don't know if there's one in particular that, like, speaks to you the most that you would love to tell me about, like because I just love how you tell also not just the story within the photos, but in your caption too.
Mhm.
You really set
Oh,
the
thank you.
scene. You really do, and I absolutely love it. Like, is there anyone here that one of these that stand out to you that you love to talk us through, like, how the shot came about?
Yeah. Actually, could we go back to
Mhm.
there's a little monarch butterfly on the left there. Yeah.
This one?
Yes, yeah, with the
Yeah,
yellow. Um,
gorgeous.
so this one in recent months has been more special to me personally. Um, because it's something that we do at the zoo. We're working really hard on Western monarch conservation. And I know a lot of people in general, you just expect to see butterflies in the spring and summer and a little bit of the fall. They're beautiful. But what not many people know is that this species in particular, the East Coast is actually doing pretty okay, but the Western monarchs have declined by about 96%, which is pretty significant. And they only use one plant, it's milkweed, and just with how different habitats have changed and how there's more housing that's coming up, they're really struggling a lot. And with the drought too, because the desert, that'll do it. Um, and so this one was really special to me because it was one of the few caterpillars that we were watching. Only about 1 in 10 will even really hatch and make it to adulthood. So it was cool to see this little guy just hanging out in the flowers of, wow, it's like summer making it. And the fact that I get to work at a place where we are trying to make a difference and have these habitats for these guys. And that applies to a lot of species that I really love to work with because there's quite a few critically endangered ones that people don't think about as much here in the United States. Oftentimes we're thinking about like lions and orangutans and all these
Right,
really big name
right.
things, but we've got things in our backyards that really need a lot of
Harmonic
help.
butterflies. What?
Yeah. So I'm like, same with the butterflies. So there are a few critically endangered animals throughout my feed, like piping plovers and least terns and stuff like that, that I personally love to showcase because I'm like, guys, these are here in our backyards and we could do really simple things to help them out. And I think that's important to share too with others to say you can create cool art, but also advocate for the species that you love too.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm gonna go to this question here. This is a
Yeah,
great question.
absolutely.
Because I was thinking the same thing.
Mhm.
Kendra Graves asks, I'm curious how Erica works with light in making images of wildlife. How do the light conditions outdoors influence how you take a photo? Your images are so bright and crisp with beautiful hues, and I could not agree more.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's honestly such a good question. Um, and it can be tough too, right? Because a lot of people oftentimes are photographing people, and you can make a whole plan of what you're going to do, but animals are going to do whatever they want. So one thing that I really strive for, especially when it comes to color, I love color. As I was telling Polly, color is so fun. What you really want to do is shoot for these light overcast days. And a lot of people think that you need to rely on more of these kind of moody images. But many of these photos that you're seeing were on days where it was just a nice, partly cloudy day. I oftentimes really struggle when it's a full blue sky day because the light can get really hazy, and then you can also get a little bit of that heat haze, especially with subjects that are more distant. And I'll also rely a lot on the vegetation as well. So, like some of these images that you see, the animals are really covered in leaves. And so that will help me make images pop a bit more if I can rely on the vegetation rather than just putting them in the direct light and somehow angle myself to where light's shining kind of at a more diagonal angle to help make them pop. But I will also sometimes too to help my subjects that are maybe not as bright in color. I'll try to lighten them up and kind of make that more of the central focus and then adjust the backgrounds as necessary so that way it's more of the animal popping and having a little bit more of highlights in the background just to kind of add a little flair. But trying to do where you can. I know it's really hard because you can't always control the weather, but definitely light overcast days are the best days to go outside.
And then when it's moments like this, like, I was like,
Mhm.
did I just like, tell me about this moment."
Oh yeah. Yeah, so a good friend of mine, James Ancona, he lives out in Long Island, New York, and in early spring, summer, a lot of ospreys come in from Florida. Some come all the way up from South America, which is crazy, and they all fish in the ocean. And one of the best ways, in my opinion, to get osprey flight shots is when they're flying into their nest. Because, like I said a little bit earlier, they tend to slow down a bit. And sometimes you can get really cool angles of them with a fish. The earlier photo of the osprey you guys saw, it's most recent, the head was missing because sometimes, sounds really gross, but they will chew off the head so that way they can feed their kids without the fish flopping out of the nest. This one did not do that yet. Um, but some of these fish expressions are wild, and I really feel for the fish. I get it. You were snatched out of the ocean. You don't know what's going on. You're about to be eaten. It's a lot. But it was nice. Nice day on the shore for some ospreys.
And then, like you said, yes, they're going slower as they approach arrival, but they're still going pretty fast. So, like,
Pretty fast.
what are your settings like to, capture both, in focus?
Yeah, so one thing that I do, so my cameras, I set them to manual for starters, and I actually use auto ISO. So I only have to focus on the f-stop and the shutter speed. The lowest point that I would go for bigger birds, if necessary, would be one 1,250th of a second. Um, But one thing that I've actually practiced too, and again, this is goes back to focusing on like gulls and ducks and stuff, is practice birds coming in on approach and try to angle yourself where they are straight in front of you. And then you can adjust as needed. That's really helpful. It's also very helpful to have the sun behind you. That's really, really nice. But I'll actually start taking photos before the bird gets to my ideal space of an image. So that osprey, I probably had already taken 8 or 10 images beforehand on approach just to see where it was going to go to start with. And then I'll adjust my panning from there. And gulls tend to be very similar. So you can also practice in that sense of anticipating what direction they want to go. And then you kind of want to stay zoomed all the way out from where you start taking photos. And as you slowly, zoomed in, and as you slowly zoom out, that will allow your subject to fill the frame more and kind of allow you to get, I don't know, kind of your ideal shot, we'll say. But that's something that I've practiced a lot with. And I know some people tend to wait till the last second, but try not waiting till the last second. And then you can delete all those other ones that you don't want, but you're more likely to get what you're hoping for.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I also know in addition to your photography, like I mentioned, you're an educator.
Yeah,
You teach outreach and conservation and conservation at Utah's Hogle Zoo.
yeah,
How do you connect with students and communities who may be new to wildlife or conservation?
yeah. No, that's a great question. Um, I will say, growing up in Maine, so different from growing up out here because I'm very used to having every kind of wild animal you could possibly think of that just lives in your yard. And here in Utah, it's very different. Anyone that lives in the valley has a whole different lifestyle of really not growing up with wildlife in their backyard, unless maybe it's a hummingbird. And so I kind of had to work through that with my own self of, okay, I've been teaching people about animals through my art. I worked at nature preschool, which, when you're 3 to 5 years old, it's a much different approach to wildlife versus someone who's in their 50s because we all have different life experiences. And I was very lucky that the zoo provided us with some certified interpretive guide training. So I am certified in that, which is really cool. But really, what they talked about is being adaptable to everyone's different life experiences. So, what could the person that you're talking to, even though they're a stranger, somehow connect with what message you're trying to spread. So, for example, if I'm talking to a 6-year-old saying, okay, what do you notice about this tiger? And it's easier for them to say, I notice his eyes. I notice his claws. I notice that he's orange. I say, amazing. Those are all things that help him survive in the wild for XYZ reasons. Versus maybe someone who's in their 70s that says, oh man, like years ago, I went to a circus and saw a tiger and I saw blah, 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 all these different things. And that has led me into some really great conversations, especially with our tigers. We have more tigers. There's only 500 left in the world, which is not much. But it's been a nice way to connect these conversations of here's why we're trying to conserve this animal. There's a lot of different things that used to happen with tigers in the past, but here's why they currently matter. Here's why we're talking about it and open up to more conversations. So it's a lot of adaptability and sometimes it's just a lot of guessing. But if you can find that little connection piece, you can build so much more from that.
That is such a good way to make it very, like, accessible and make it in a way that they would understand about, like,
Yeah.
why it's important, right?
Mhm.
Um, what are some of, like, the misconceptions people have about conservation or wildlife that your work helps to challenge?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think, especially in the zoo world too, I never imagined myself working at a zoo, let alone being a teacher at a zoo.
Mm,
Didn't know that was a job until I lived here. Um, Especially with, 100 years ago, zoos were not the same as they currently are today. Whole different vibe, different standards, and stuff like that. And I think what's really nice is that with each individual animal, you get to kind of learn their life story. So, for example, we have some Mongolian wild horses. They were the horses that basically went extinct in the wild, and then all of these zoos came together, created a breeding program, and now they are back in the wild. They've been reintroduced, which is really cool. And I think not a lot of people are aware of how much zoos actually do contribute to conservation practices, because the goal in itself is to have, yes, a healthy population under human care, but really the hope is that you can spread more messages about things. And so that can be a little tricky to explain sometimes. And in other senses too, we have a lot of rescued animals that are local species. And I think that applies even to like wildlife rehab places where, there's very iconic species in every part of the world. And there's a lot of these little guys, and it's mostly little guys that people don't really tend to notice as much. And so trying to tie in these bigger species to then come back and say, hey, here in Utah, we also have this critically endangered tortoise that really needs some help. And they're facing the same issues that these other animals in Africa are facing that maybe you're more aware of. So it's really a lot of, again, kind of like what I said before, a lot of tying in to what people are already connected with and then trying to build and hopefully break that misconception. However, people do still ask me crazy questions. I've definitely had someone for my boss say, "What fruit does a fruit bat hatch out of?" Said, none. None of them. So sorry. Um, but yeah, it tends to be a lot of just not understanding animals just as a whole. And sometimes you really do just have to start basic. And the thing is, that's okay. I think people just don't want to feel like they're not smart, and that's so fair. Nobody wants to. I don't want to. But you just have to be really kind and say, you know what, let's break this down together. Let's talk about it and see what layers we can get to together.
Ah, that is just so incredible. Along those same lines, like, do you have a
Mhm.
story from your teaching or outreach that has really stayed with you that reminds you of why you do this work?
Yeah, I do actually. Funny you say that. So the team that I'm on, it's a program across Utah to try to get more science into schools because sometimes our program that we do, it's only an hour and it's for second grade. Sometimes is the only science that these kids do for the whole year, depending on where we go. So we go to every corner of Utah. If the school has 3 kids, we'll be there. And those I love so much. I love the rural schools. Um, but it's so nice when I can go to a school where I have kids who genuinely cannot afford to come to the zoo. And I do relate to that because at times in life I was that kid who couldn't afford to do all these crazy big things. And so for me personally, after I teach a class, I get to bring 2 animals with me. So they do get to meet some animals that are from the habitats that we're talking about. And it's usually a desert habitat and a wetland habitat, so marshes and stuff like that. And I had this one little girl come up to me. She was so, so sweet. And she said, I'm so glad that you came. I want to go to the zoo so bad, but I can't go because we don't have enough money. And I've never met a snake before. And I used to be so afraid of snakes, but now I'm not afraid of snakes. And I want to learn all about different animals and all the snakes. And I nearly cried in my car. I was like, that's so beautiful. But she was just so genuinely kind about it. And I fully understand that financially, not everyone can do all these things. And it's cool that I get to do this free program where I can ensure that they're getting a science experience while also getting to meet animals and interact with animals and maybe animals that they're afraid of and say, hey, here's why we should care about these guys. You don't necessarily have to like them, or maybe they don't make you feel super comfortable, but everything has purpose, and here's why.
Mm.
So that's one of my favorite things about my job.
You know, if I had a teacher like you, maybe I would have done something different. Oh my gosh, I love how you approach that and your framing, your
Thank you.
perspective. I wanna dive into some of these questions here. Time
Of course, yeah.
I ask, Could you
Mhm.
speak to your approach to achieving a shallow depth of field, especially in the fast-paced moments?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, some of these birds, it truly, how do I want to describe this? Okay, here we go. So I've recently been going through my hard drive, and I have discovered that I've taken almost 40,000 images that I am slowly trying to sift through, which feels like a nightmare. But it's been good. And honestly, sometimes it really is just luck and trying to fight for it. But there are some individuals that I have been lucky enough to where they stay in certain areas that I can practice with. So, like these great horned owls, for example, they were born at the zoo. We had wild great horned owls at the zoo, and they were a subject that really allowed me to practice with that depth of field. I try to stay at an F8 if possible. That's usually my best bet, especially when I'm fully zoomed on something. Um, I know I hate to say that it's really just a lot of practice and luck, but it's oftentimes more luck than not. Um, but it really is. I'm so sorry. I don't
No,
know if that's
no, but
exactly
luck
what you were
is
looking for,
but no, but luck is
but
like, the
it's a
preparation,
lot
though,
of
behind it.
practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too where, like I said, people tend to give up on wildlife pretty quick because it takes a lot of patience, but even more than patience, it takes a lot of visiting certain areas and a lot of research to where I really rely on individuals that I get to know. And that sounds really silly to say that there are individual wild animals that just stay pretty consistently in certain areas. But it's really nice when they do, though, because that does allow you to push yourself more with those standards of the photo quality that you want. Because I don't know, I'm trying to think of an animal that's only just on here for a minute. Um, there are certain things, well, I guess I could go back to snowy owls. It's kind of the same thing with them and with these puffins too, is you are just kind of spitfiring as you're taking photos sometimes. And when it comes to the Puffin Island, I didn't even look at my images or think about them until I got home because I had a 4 hour drive. So I really didn't know
Mm.
fully what I got. And sometimes that really is just what happens. I look back and I go, dang, I don't know how I did that, but that was great. Amazing. But yeah, take advantage of the consistency because it will benefit you in those moments where you really do only have 10 seconds to plan out a bird coming straight at you in the distance.
And, I love what you said earlier about just, like, the everyday things that we maybe drive by, walk by all the time,
Yeah.
but never think about stopping and seeing the nature and the species, like the
Hmm.
ponds, the parks. Oh my gosh, like, going to in New York, there I would, like, walk down a block and I see, like, million different pigeons, like, just different
Yes.
random things that you
And
see, like, all the time, and it was like, okay, like, what is it like to then just sit at the park for 5, you know, hours? Like,
yeah,
it sounds crazy, but maybe that's what it
it
takes
is.
for that repetition, for that practice, because like you said,
Hmm.
that is how you have the skill to be ready for those 10 seconds.
Yeah, it really does become muscle memory. And I'm so glad you said pigeons too. I forgot about pigeons. They can also
Oh,
be
I
so
said
great
pigeons,
because
girl,
they're
because
fast.
they scared me.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm so sorry. I
pigeons can
I
be a
said
lot.
pigeons because I have PTSD from my New York time. Those pigeons in New York, I have PTSD. That's why I remember those pigeons. But sorry, go ahead.
No, no, totally fair. Pigeon, I have a coworker that's terrified of pigeons, but what can you do? No, pigeons are also a really great one. Actually, Ty, there's my recommendation. Pigeons. Because pigeons, even though they just look like these big little chunky blobs flying around everywhere, being crazy, they are actually so fast. And it will allow you to practice in ways that you can't even imagine because there's hundreds of them and they're all fun colors. And portrait wise, you can really go to town. especially with them. Someone actually won the Audubon Awards. I can't remember if it was 2023 or 2022 with a photo of a pigeon. And it was just a portrait of a pigeon. So you really can go far with those guys. And if you're lucky, a peregrine falcon will show up and start hunting them. It'll be amazing. Highly recommend.
And even the way you photograph squirrels on the same sense, because I see squirrels like every day. I
Right.
never thought
Yeah.
about like photographing them in that way, especially the way you
Hmm.
do. We have another question here, which I like. Tank Harper asks, "Hi, I'd love to hear about if you have experiences getting commissioned to photograph for organizations or companies, or pitching for publications, or self-funding for personal projects. If you do at all, how do you go about balancing that work?"
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, in regards to commission itself, that is something that I only just barely started working on. However, only because I had so many different life things happen with moving and stuff. So it took me a minute to get there. But my goal is that by the end of this year, I can make this into a full business like I've been wanting to do. A lot of what I've done, it sounds kind of silly, but there's a lot of gift shops around in every state that you go to. You can definitely look into gift shops because the more that I talk to them, their main goal is to sell. They want things that are iconic for each state. So, for example, famous things in Maine, they love poppins, they love moose, they love loons. Here in Utah, they love the pronghorn and bison and like burrowing owls and snakes and stuff like that. So, if you can really accommodate yourself to certain iconic species, if you have, even just a couple that you can create into prints, you really can make deals with different little gift shops. And
There's
the thing
such a
is, so many people go to gift shops because they want those,
Yeah,
they want like a
yeah,
postcard and stuff.
you're absolutely right, like, I
Yeah.
always would if I see a photo, especially those gift shop those cards, those, like
Hmm.
you're so
Yeah.
right.
So if that's something that you have, even like with landscapes too, if you have certain places that you've been, or maybe you live by, I don't know, if you live by a really nice lighthouse or something that's really iconic and you can capture it in a really unique way, that's really what these people are looking for. It may not, be the same financially as doing it yourself on your own website and stuff. And that, as we all know, takes a lot to learn, but it's definitely something to look into. And then you can create these really nice partnerships within the community as well to spread the word about yourself. And also, get a few dollars. Can't complain about that. Um, but on the other end of it too, one way that I tend to get like merchandise is that some of my work I do like to send into different conservation projects. So I have one image of a pronghorn that was recently used in the Sageland Collaborative volunteer group. They work with a lot of different wildlife things here in Utah. And that photo actually, all the money for the calendar goes back to helping wildlife. And that was something really important for me personally, is that if I'm going to do this, I need to somehow also contribute back to these animals that I'm photographing. And so that can also be something that you could look into too, because then I get fun hats and free calendars and stickers, which I love as well. So if that's something you also want to do, if you're interested in wildlife, it doesn't always have to be you giving money directly. It can be something as simple as, hey, do you want to use this photo to promote saving the whales? And then you can kind of go from there and people start to notice your name there as well.
Now, Erica, please tell me, you're selling prints, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, 'cause
I'm
I was
working on
like,
my website, guys. It's really slow. I'm sorry. It's getting
"No,
there.
just say the word." I'm telling you, like, I need some prints, like, your work is just
Yeah.
incredible.
Thank you.
Um, we're almost at time, but I would love to hear from you,
Mhm.
when you think about how you want people to feel when they're seeing your photos, what do you hope that they walk away with, like, feeling and seeing them? And even just, like, what you're saying here
Yeah.
about, the why of why you do what you do, especially the
Mhm.
teaching aspect with conservation. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's just so powerful, and I feel like,
Mhm.
that is, like, truly I mean, I don't know how much you think about legacy in terms of work
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
okay, you do? Okay, I would love to hear when
A
you
little bit. I'm like, oh, it'd be
okay.
cool to,
Yeah,
someday a photo's left of me
yeah,
somewhere.
no, that's
But
someday now. So tell me, like, what is that hope for you?
yeah, the biggest thing, and this applies again to when I really started to get into this during COVID times, is that I would start getting messages when I was just still small on Instagram of people saying, I've lived in Maine like you my whole life, and I didn't know that this thing existed in my backyard, and I could see it as easily as you are every single day. And that really kind of struck me vividly of, oh wow, these people are living genuinely in the same town as me, and they're realizing what's out there. And it's not as unaccessible as people think it is. I think people tend to see wildlife photography and go, that is too hard for me. I can just go to a zoo and it'll be easier that way, which is fair. There are zoo photographers. It's really fun. As you guys have seen some of my photos, I have not seen a wild snow leopard, would be great someday. Um, but I really want to promote that idea that no matter who you are, no matter where you live or what you have access to, you can always find wild things and make it your own in terms of art. It doesn't have to be something crazy like you saw lions taking down a water buffalo in Africa. You really can just, like you said, hang out in a park and go see some really colorful looking birds and say, oh my gosh, what magic can I make with that to not only like enhance this animal, but enhance what I'm able to share? And at the same time, just have fun with it. I think a lot of people tend to get too tucked away in this idea of I have to do this, and this to make everything that I do perfect. But if you're just out there having fun, things really will appear. The more you focus on an animal, my mom always says this, the more that you think about the one thing that you want, it's not going to show up. And let me tell you, just spot on information, it's not going to show up. But all these little things really will show up. And, it makes me think back to this one sunset evening on the coast of Connecticut. I was sitting on the beach with my friends. There were no birds around, nothing was happening at all. And this little baby piping plover, critically endangered cotton ball this big, just walked right up to us and just sat right in front of my feet. And it was magical. And it wasn't this really big moment, but it was something that felt extraordinary because there's this little cotton ball that, against all odds, is surviving. And so, my hope in sharing all these different species is that other people can see the same thing of, wow, this exists in the winter, in my yard, or in the springtime, where this little thing is traveling here from the Arctic Circle. How is it even doing that? And to hopefully, I don't know, inspire this idea that it's not just all about the big things, that the little guys matter too. So, to really enhance that.
Absolutely. And, I mentioned at the beginning, you photographed over 700 species and traveled to over 30 states. Is
Yeah.
there a state or a species that you haven't photographed yet that you want to?
A great question. Yeah, ironically, that whole journey across America, very random. I asked one of my friends if they would help me move from Maine to Utah. And we said, let's just take 3 weeks across America and see what happens. It was great. Highly recommend. Whoever
That
got
is
time to do that.
amazing. Oh my gosh, I've always wanted to do that.
Yes, highly recommend it, guys. It's so fun. We still talk about it to this day. It was great. And you know, I know it's in Canada, but I would love to see a polar bear. It would be really cool to see one of those guys. At the same time, I know Yellowstone has wolves. They're a little tricky, but there are these very special wolves that live kind of more towards very, very northern Washington, British Columbia, and there are these coastal wolves that just live on the ocean, and they look so cool. And I'd love to see one someday. That and an orca. I want to see an orca so bad. I haven't really delved into the mammals of the sea as much. They're a little more tricky, if I'm being honest. They're tough, but I'd love to kind of delve into that realm a little bit too.
Oh my gosh. I know that will happen. I know. And
It'd be
like,
great.
is your goal to reach go to all 50 states? Would that be like the goal?
You know, not gonna lie, now that I'm at 33, like might as well get to the other 17. I'm so
I
at it.
mean,
It's really
what
just Midwest.
come through the Midwest. Like I was telling you
I would love
before
to.
this, my mom,
Go
I
on a
was
bird
like I was
adventure.
I'm so serious. Like I was telling you before we hopped on, I was in Utah because my mom was there at the time,
Yeah.
but now we're back in the Midwest. And so
Hmm.
I'm sure she'll welcome you anytime you go to
Yeah.
Oklahoma. But I would love to see you do all 50 states and then turn that into a book or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you. I love that. Yeah.
like a chapter for each state. I don't know, just thinking out loud. Just tell me when that book drops, and I will be one of the first to purchase it. Like I
Done.
could absolutely see that. Um, before we go, something that I just thought about now, it's like
Yeah.
you have, like you said, you have thousands and thousands. I think what was it? Did you say 40,000 photos that got like, you just have thousands,
So
thousands
many.
and photos. Like, how do you archive everything? Do you archive it by year, by animal?
Ooh, good
How,
question.
and especially the fact that you even archiving just like the captions, like I told you, like you tell a story each time you post. So
Yeah.
how is your post process like for you?
Yeah. So in regards to my Instagram posts, I really do like to tell a story. I think that makes it easier for people to connect with the animal, not
Mm,
just the art, which again,
yeah.
really important to me. I really would love for people to do that. Um,
Mhm.
in regards to my storage, I currently have a hard drive where they're all hanging out. I still got been doing a lot of deleting recently,
Mm.
but I like to organize it kind of by types of animals. So I've got like a mammals category, birds, reptiles, amphibians. Invertebrates is a kind of a bigger word for a lot of people. I'm my sciencey self, but invertebrates is essentially anything from crabs to squids to jellyfish, all of the above, butterflies, moths, all of that. And so I've been trying to organize it in that sense, just to kind of remember the different things that I've been seeing. And especially if anyone gets really curious as regards to exploring your backyard and all your little wild places, iNaturalist is one of my favorite apps. I love it. And they've actually added on an AI camera so you can learn about anything from mushrooms to plants to animals. And that's actually helped me personally a lot. I can't know everything,
That's also what I was gonna
but
ask
it's been
because
really
how do you even
fun.
retain all this information, but also how do you know which species is what?
Right.
For me, a bird
Yeah.
is a bird. Like, I'm so ignorant in
Right.
this.
I know. It's true. And honestly, when I started, even to this day, I was organizing yesterday and I found something new in my photos. I said, when did I even see that? 3 years ago? I don't remember. And for some species, especially those sandpipers, they're all just brown and white in different shades. Some have yellow legs, some don't. Half the time, I have no clue. And especially when it's in the off season, when they're no longer in their what they call breeding plumage. So their colors aren't as fancy, they're a little more dull. Half the time, I truly don't know what I'm looking at, guys. Sometimes it's a little bit of an educated guess in October. Love the springtime. Um, but it really is at times just staring at these animals and going, there's something different about you. I just can't place what. And really relying on things like eBird with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, Bird Studies, as well as, again, iNaturalist. It really has been so helpful for my brain to just get these little snippets of information to say, hey, you saw this thing, cool. Like, great, awesome. Next thing.
Oh.
Yeah,
Erica, I am just so, like, inspired and blown
thank
away
you.
and impressed, like, when I go next time on, like, the streaming platforms and I see a new Discovery show or National Geographic show and it says Erika Berry, I'll be like, "I
I would
knew
love
this moment
to.
was coming,
Sign me
I
up.
knew it." I'll be like, "I remember when I interviewed her, like, years ago." Yeah, Erica, you are just phenomenal, your work is just a breath of fresh air, and so is your energy and your spirit, so thank you
Thank you.
so much for
Yeah,
your
and
time today.
truly, anyone that does watch this later on YouTube, maybe, or anyone in the comments, if you do
Mhm.
have further questions, I know I have 10,000 things to say. Please send me a message on Instagram. I promise I will answer anything to the best of my ability.
Yes, and y'all stay tuned because Erica's gonna do some photo walks, nature walks for us
Yes,
in the new
absolutely.
year. I'm just so excited.
Yeah, it'd
Erica,
be great.
again, thank you so much for your time. This was such a
Thank you.
fantastic conversation. Your work is gorgeous. I will be
Thank you
buying a
so
print from you soon.
much.
Um,
Thank
thank
you.
you all who tuned in and joined us for the Black Women Photographer Summit powered by Lightroom. We have a few more speakers for today. And if you missed any part of this conversation or other conversations, every conversation is being recorded and will be available for replay later. Thank you, Erica. Anything else
Awesome.
you want
Thank
to
you
share with us
guys.
before we go?
You know, honestly, this is I was a little intimidated, not gonna lie. I had a little bit of imposter syndrome before I got on here, and I really appreciate all of you guys being here and reminding me that I can do things like this, and I'm very capable, and I
Yes.
can be confident and do cool things. So, thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it. This was really, really fun.
No, absolutely. And I mean, this is why we have these spaces because I think, like I was telling you before we got on, like there's not so many of us that you see in these spaces in wildlife in conservation, and that's why it's so, so important that people see you and
Hmm.
hear you, and you
Yeah.
show them that it is easy to be in this well, it takes work, but it is
Yeah.
attainable. You can do the work, you
Yeah.
can get there, you can do this practice. It doesn't have to be so hard. You don't have to, like you said, go photograph lions in the continent. Like, you can
Yeah.
do something in your backyard, and then that is how you get your start, and that's how we have more
Hmm.
of us in wildlife and conservation. So,
Yeah.
it's incredible. I hope you see all the love for you in the chat, like,
Thank you,
it's
guys. I so
fantastic,
appreciate it. Thank you.
crazy work. I mean, thank you so much, Erica, and thank you everyone who made this conversation such a great one with your great
Yeah.
questions. All right, y'all. See you next time.
Bye. Thank you.